Good day, readers. Welcome back for another lesson as we continue the Iditarod adventures. We are today on lesson 95. We're getting closer to Chad and the Iditarod race. I've been very excited for us to get to that. All right, lesson 95. Column number 1. Oh, do you have your book ready? Open to lesson 95? Ready for vocabulary? If not, pause and get yourself ready. Here we go. Column 1. Word 1 is volunteer. What word? Right, volunteer. A volunteer is a person who does a job without pay. A fireman who works without pay is a volunteer fireman. An assistant who works without pay is a volunteer assistant. Word 2 is blizzard. What word? Yes, blizzard. Number 3 is weary. What word? Correct, weary. Weary is another word for very tired. So if she was very tired after chopping the wood, we could say she was weary after chopping wood. The homework made them very tired. We could say the homework made them weary. Weary, another word for very tired. Word 4 is photo. What word? Right, photo. And word 5 is a proper noun that names a specific country. Do you know what country that says? Right, Sweden. Sweden is a country that's part of land that the Vikings once ruled. Sweden. All right, let's go to column 2. Scholars, all the words in column 2 have the suffix ed, past tense ending added to it. So I'm going to give you the root word, and then you're going to give me the past tense verb, right, with that suffix on it. Number 1, the root word is compete. What's that whole word? Right, competed. Things that compete with each other are in a contest with each other. If plants are competing to get more sunlight, they are in a contest to see which plant will get more sunlight. If two people are competing in a race, they're in a contest to see who will win the race. Competed. Number 2, the root word is amuse. What's that whole word? Right, amused. When something amuses a person, it makes the person laugh. Right? Here's another way of saying, right, Mr. Long made the students laugh. Mr. Long amused the students. I know. You find me very amusing. Thanks so much. All right, number 3. The root word is mush. What's this word? Right, mushed. And number 4. The root word is dedicate. This word is good, dedicated. All right, column 3. Number 1 is a proper noun. It names a specific person. What person? Right, Mr. Martin. Do you think it's Mr. Martin, our PE teacher? Sorry, everyone. I've got quite a little clog this morning. Nothing a little coffee won't fix. Mr. Martin, we'll have to tell him he's in our story today. Word 2 is the word feet. Different than your feet on your body. This kind of feat is like amazing things that people do. Amazing things that people do are called feats. Walking a tightrope is a difficult feat. Right? What's that word again, number 2? Right, feat. Number 3 is events. What word? Good, events. Number 4 is courage. What word? Good, courage. And number 5 is unties. It has a prefix at the front of the word ties. Unties. What word? Good, unties. And column 4. That first word is endurance. What word? Great, endurance. The second word is challenging. What word? Good, challenging. So the root word is challenge, and we've added the ing suffix, and we've had to drop the silent e on challenge to add the ing. Challenging. Number 3 is hoover. What word? Excellent, hoover. And number 4, another root word with a suffix ing, demanding. What word? Great, demanding. All right. Scholars, if you need to review any of those vocabulary words or want to practice them a little bit, press pause right now. Otherwise, we're moving to part B. Part B is an information passage that's going to give us some facts about the race before we read our next story today. Our information passage is titled Supplies for the Race. Supplies for the race. The rules of the Iditarod require each musher to bring along supplies that are needed for the musher and the dogs to survive under severe conditions. The rules require the musher to have an axe, a good sleeping bag, snowshoes, and enough food for one day. So let's listen to that part again. The rules require the musher to have an axe, a good sleeping bag, snowshoes, and enough food for one day. Who thinks they can name all the things that we just said a musher needs? Give it a try. How many can you remember? Did you get them all? Snowshoes, enough food for one day, an axe, a good sleeping bag. The sled must have at least 2 pounds of food for each dog and 1 day's worth of food for the musher. The rules also require the sled to have enough room to carry at least one injured dog. So, scholars, how much food does each dog need every day? Right, at least 2 pounds of food for each dog. Right, and if Chad's bringing 16 dogs, he needs 16 times 2. Anyone doing that math right now? 16 times 2? 32. So he needs 32 pounds of dog food. And what else did we just hear the sled must have room for? Right, at least one injured dog to be able to have a place to ride. All right. Press pause, read through that information passage to yourself or to a pet or stuffy before we continue. Okay, our story for today, the big race. Before we read the big race, let's think about the last time our last story. What important thing did the vet tell Chad and Susie about one of the dogs? Right, Chugger has a problem with her hip. And Chad has to decide, right, whether or not Chugger is going to be in the race. And I asked each of you at the end of the last class to think about what you predict, what you think Chad's going to do. So I think we're going to find out. Oh, goodness. The big race. Chad didn't talk much in the truck as he drove back to Susie's place. Susie could see that he was thinking about what to do with Chugger. She didn't say anything. She knew that Chad had to make his own decision because he would be the one who would have to live with it. The only dogs that are more important than the wheel dogs are the lead dogs. Susie knew that Chad did not want to replace either of his regular wheel dogs because they worked well together. I'm going to pause for just a moment, everyone. So, did everyone remember Chugger's a wheel dog? And by not having Chugger race, right, the other wheel dog is used to working with Chugger. So that wheel dog would have to get used to working with another dog, and the race is coming soon. So that's a lot to be thinking about, right? As Chad drove, he said, well, she hasn't had any problems on the practice runs. A few minutes later, he said, neither of her parents had hip problems. So he's kind of just thinking out loud to himself, right? As he's trying to decide what to do. When the truck was about a mile from Susie's place, he said, I'll make a decision tomorrow. When he dropped Susie off, he said, I've made up my mind about Chugger. So he didn't even wait till tomorrow. I'm going to keep her on the team. I think she'll be fine. So he gave 2 reasons why he's thinking it would be okay for Chugger to be in the race. Can you name those 2 reasons right now? Give it a try. Right. One of those reasons, right? She hasn't been having any problems with her hips during their practices. And that second reason, right? Neither of her parents had any hip problems. So those 2 reasons have led him to think she's going to be okay and that he's going to keep her in the race. Later that evening, Susie thought about the adventure that Chad was going to have. As she thought about the Iditarod, she looked at a photo on the wall that showed a smiling woman surrounded by sled dogs. The woman was Susan Butcher. She had entered the Iditarod 17 times, and she actually finished it 16 times. Let's pause there for a moment, scholars. So, what's the name of the woman in the picture? Yes, Susan Butcher. How many times had she entered the Iditarod? Correct, 17 times. And how many times had she finished the Iditarod? Good, 16 times. That's amazing, right? That she entered 17 times and actually finished the race 16 times. So, scholars, it's actually quite common for people who are in the Iditarod to drop out and not finish the race. So, right, we know Chad did that last year, right? We found out his sled had broken down and he dropped out. So he set himself a new goal this year of just finishing the race, not winning, just finishing. Right? And now we know Susan Butcher entered 17 times and actually finished the race 16 times. So how many times does that mean she had to drop out? Right? Only 1 time out of 17. So scholars, it's a race of endurance for the musher and for the musher's dogs especially. Right? Remember, they're traveling 1,100 miles in about 10 days. So it's quite an adventure. Now, scholars, we're going to continue reading here a bit, but I want you to keep something in mind. Be sure to click on the link, video link for a little help with that's related to the homework. I'll show you a picture of Susan Butcher. It's a real person, right? Even though we're reading a fictional story about Chad joining the Iditarod, Susan Butcher is a real person who actually entered the Iditarod race 17 times and finished the race 16 times. And you're going to hear a little bit more right now about her. Let's keep going. Not only did she finish the race, but one time she came in third place. 4 times she came in second place. This was an amazing feat for a woman who competed against the greatest mushers in the world in an event that required courage, strength, and incredible endurance. Even more amazing than her 4 second place finishes was her first place finish in 1986. And she also finished first in 1987, 1988, and 1990. So, scholars, she won the Iditarod 4 times. Awesome. Susie wondered how she had done it. 4 first place finishes in what has to be one of the most challenging events a person could enter. So she finished in third place once. She finished in second place 4 times. And she won the race. She came in first 4 times. Wow. Right? I want you to really make sure you click on that assignment link today and check out that photo of her. This is a great person to know. All right. We're at the ellipsis, right? So we're now jumping ahead to race day. Are you ready? More than 75 teams were ready to start the Iditarod. The weather was miserable. The temperature was near freezing, and a thick, wet snow was falling. The dogs were panting. They knew that they were going to start something that was very demanding. The race had started at 10 a.m., but it hadn't started for all the mushers. One musher started at a time. In fact, the first musher who was called to the starting line had died earlier that year. After calling his name, the announcer explained to the crowd that the race was dedicated to him. 2 minutes later, the first musher left. Everybody cheered. Some of the dogs barked and howled. Others just looked around panting. 2 minutes after that musher had left, another musher started. So, scholars, let's hold that spot. Right? So, the temperature is about 32 degrees, so it's near freezing. Right? It's a pretty nice day. If it was 32 degrees here in the winter, we would say, wow, that's a very nice day. And we just learned how many mushers get to leave at a time. Right, 1 musher at a time. And how much time has to pass in between each musher starting the race? Right, 2 minutes. So if a musher is the 20th one in line, it's going to be 40 minutes before that musher gets to start. All right. Let's continue. Musher number 16 amused the crowd, but he didn't do it on purpose. He had tied the back of his sled to a pickup truck. When the announcer called his number, he mushed. The team pulled hard, and as they crossed the start line, the dogs were pulling the pickup truck along behind them. The announcer said, "Now there's a team with some real power. Think of how well they're going to do when Mr. Martin unties them from his truck." Everybody laughed. Right? Because they're not going to pull that truck through the whole Iditarod. He forgot to untie them. So everyone thought that was pretty funny. All right, scholars, I'm going to let you read the rest of that to yourself. We're at this spot. It was now after 11 a.m. Pause and read the rest of this story to yourself. And then I have a few questions for you about that. All right, let's check in on my questions. So, As you read the rest of the story, you found out what number Chad is. What number is Chad? Right, 61. And the musher just in front of Chad is from another country. What country is she from? You're right, Sweden. And my last question. When the mushers are on the trail, what can't they do? There's a lot of possibilities of how you could have said that, right? They can't ask for any help. They can't use a radio. They can't use a phone, right? They are on their own. That sounds a little dangerous, doesn't it? No wonder this is a race of great endurance and courage. All right, scholars, remember, click on that video of the assignment link so you can take a look at Susan Butcher with me and get to know a little bit more about your assignment.